Hi, welcome to my channel, True Crime with Gael, where Fright Month is taking place. It's so exciting to see my subscribers going up. I really appreciate all of you that have subscribed. Just a little note, I'm going to tone it down with the music in the episodes. I'm still experimenting with it. I live in the country and I've been trying to drown out the sounds of the animals in the background. But maybe chickens, dogs, and the occasional cow is all the background music I need. We'll see. Anyway, thanks so much for stopping by. If you do enjoy this video, please like, comment, or subscribe. Alright, let's begin. German immigration to Brazil started as early as 1824, many decades before the beginning of the immigration of other European ethnic groups to Brazil. Even though the population of German descent makes up a small minority of Brazil, they represent a very large percentage of the population of the South. Jean Roche estimated that people of German descent made up 13.3% of the population in Rio Grande do Sul in 1890, and that they increased to 21.6% of the population in 1950. From 1824 to 1969, around 250,000 Germans emigrated to Brazil, being the fourth largest immigrant population to settle in the country, after the Portuguese, Italians, and Spaniards. About 30% of them arrived between World War I and World War II. Major Schaefer, a German who was living in Brazil, was sent to Germany in order to bring immigrants. To attract the immigrants, the Brazilian government had promised large tracts of land where they could settle with their families and colonize the region. From 1824 to 1829, the Major brought 5,000 Germans to Brazil. By the end of the 19th century, 122 German communities had been created in Rio Grande do Sul, Paraná, São Paulo, Minas Gerais, Rio de Janeiro, and Santa Catarina. This nightmare took place in the state of Santa Catarina, specifically in the municipality of Canelinha. It's a beautiful area nested in the center of lush green mountains and full of breathtaking nature, architecture, and other attractions. It was the home of Rozalba Grimm, whose dark heart eclipsed the beauty of her hometown. The 26-year-old announced her pregnancy in October of 2020, but lost the baby in January. However, she did not inform her family, including her 44-year-old husband, Zulmiyar Scheistel. According to University of Rochester Medical Center psychiatry professor Dr. Emma Robertson Blackmore, a woman who has a miscarriage is at risk for depression and anxiety symptoms in subsequent years. Even after having a healthy child, women who miscarry have a higher risk of postpartum depression. In a paper published in 2011 in the British Journal of Psychiatry, she followed more than 13,000 women for 3 years post-birth. Of the 2,823 who had miscarriages, about 15% experienced clinically significant depression and/or anxiety during and after pregnancies for up to 3 years. Research by Cheryl S. Heller and Charles H. Zayana looked at mothers who had delivered a child within 19 months after a perinatal loss. When the child was a year old, the researchers assessed the mother-child attachment relationships and found that 45% of the infants had disorganized attachments to their mothers. A disorganized attachment style in a child, also known as disoriented attachment, is an insecure attachment formed when a child is emotionally and physically dependent on someone who is also a source of distress or fears. Disorganized or disoriented attachment style is usually found in people who have experienced physical, emotional, or sexual abuse from their caretakers. Attachment theory asserts that when a child is frightened, they turn to an attached caretaker for security, comfort, and reassurance. However, if the caretaker is also the very source of threat, then the child has an insoluble problem. No consistent, organized strategies can relieve the fears and disorganized attachment issues develop. Disorganized infants can show the following anomalous or disoriented behavior. A disorganized baby might crawl rapidly towards his father upon the parent's return, but then the child would suddenly stop, turn his head, and gaze distantly at the wall with a trance-like, expressionless face, a sign of disassociation. After a short while, the baby might turn his head back, smile, and continue approaching his father again. There are a few causes of disorganized attachment disorder. A common cause among parents who have had a miscarriage is having a parent struggling with depression, marital discord, the unresolved loss of an attachment figure, or other traumatic experiences in the past. These otherwise normal parents may display frightening behavior to their infant unintentionally due to past traumas or unresolved loss. They may involuntarily re-experience the fear involved in front of the baby and frighten the child. These parents are sometimes fearful or withdrawn. Their unpredictable behaviors result in a disorganized attachment style formed in the child. This is why it is critical that parents get therapy, not only if they experienced a miscarriage, but any sort of significant trauma before they choose to have a child. I realize that this can be difficult at times because not all countries take mental health that seriously and consequently may not have adequate mental health care. I'm also aware that in other countries, such as the US, access to mental health care can be difficult with its extremely high costs. However, a parent's trauma can very easily wreak havoc on their child's psyche, even if it's unintentional. If you want to have a child, please don't underestimate the importance of working on your mental health and developing healthy coping mechanisms beforehand. If you do have a child, how did you mentally prepare to welcome them into your life? I would love to hear your advice in the comments below. After her miscarriage, Rozalba began to hunt for a pregnant woman who was due to give birth at around the time she had been due. The plan would be scrapped every time she learned the pregnant woman was expecting a boy. She contacted various women over social media before she began developing a relationship with Flávia Godinho Mafra. After learning that Flávia would have a female child in mid-June, Rozalba decided that her pregnant friend was the one. and began planning the crime. Her main objective was to murder Flávia and keep the child. Flávia Godinho Mafra was a resident of Brusque, another municipality of Santa Catarina, about 40 minutes away from Rozalba in Canelinha. In Brusque, Flávia grew into a beautiful person people loved to be around. She was an uplifting woman, dedicated to her family, and had a very generous heart. In 2020, she was married for almost a year to Godinho Mafra, her first boyfriend. 24-year-old Flávia was anxiously waiting for her first daughter, Cecilia, who was expected to be born in September of 2020. She graduated from UNIFEBE with a degree in education. The young woman was passionate about children and worked for some years as a teacher in early childhood education. In 2020, however, she was helping one of her best friends in an embroidery shop in Canelinha. Jesiane Benevenuti Pacheco had known Flávia since childhood. She participated in several important moments in Flavia's life, such as her wedding, and also chosen to be one of Cecilia's godmothers. Jesiane said, "Flávia was my right-hand man here at the store. It helped me a lot because of everything going on in 2020. She stayed at home because in addition to the pregnancy, she had gestational diabetes, so she was in a high-risk group. We thought it would be better for her to stay at home, but we spoke every day on our cell phones." She described Flávia as a sweet, caring, and very generous person. She was very kind at heart to people. If a person was good to her, she was ready with a smile. She trusted people a lot, and she ended up trusting this woman who took her life. Family and friends believed that Flávia and her husband were a very special couple. She was decisive, quirky, loved to decorate, and loved music. She was very attached to her mother, and her husband was everything to her. Jesiane also said that Flávia was radiant with her pregnancy, and that she insisted on preparing everything for her daughter's arrival. Cecilia was very loved. Flávia was a great mother during pregnancy. I was very happy to be chosen to be Cecilia's godparent. The newly formed family's dreams, however, were brutally interrupted on the afternoon of Thursday, August 27, 2020, when Flávia was 36 weeks pregnant. On that day, the 24-year-old was lured to a surprise baby shower by Rozalba Grimm and murdered. Rozalba claimed that the idea of faking a surprise baby shower for Flávia came 2 weeks before the crime. She convinced Flávia to pretend that she did not know about the event. Rozalba told her it should seem like a surprise. To make the plan more convincing, she invited mutual friends to participate. However, soon after, she secretly told the guests that the party had been cancelled. With the baby shower date approaching, she researched videos on how to open a pregnant woman's uterus. 2 or 3 days before the murder, the killer went to the abandoned pottery and spent about 5 minutes analyzing the place. In her testimony, Rozalba said that she designed and executed the entire plan herself. She also said that she planned on not returning to the site after the attack, because she thought the body would not be found. She claimed that she had never thought of killing anyone before. She was convinced that her plan would work and that she would raise the child as her daughter. Rozalba already had the knife, but had to go out to buy the sleep mask. She went to get Flávia, and they went to the fake baby shower. They talked about the party on the way. She parked the car in the abandoned pottery factory and placed the blindfold on Flávia. Rozalba reminded her that she had to put on the mask to convince the guests that the party was a surprise. They walked for a few meters when she landed the first blow of a brick to the back of Flávia's head. Flávia lost her balance and tried to ask for help. She turned to see Rozalba attacking her and said, "Why are you doing this? I've never done anything to you." Without hesitation, she continued the attack with 4 or 5 more bricks until Flávia fell. Some reports claimed that she used a box cutter, and others claimed that she used a stiletto knife. In any case, the bludgeoning with the bricks only incapacitated Flávia. She was alive for the whole horrific ordeal. Even though she was still moving, Rozalba started the cuts on Flávia's belly. The pregnant woman bled a lot, but Rozalba said she still breathed. Unfortunately, she died due to the bleeding caused by the savage knife attack. In her testimony, Rozalba revealed that it took a lot of effort to remove the child. The baby suffered cuts to her body during the brutality and was born shrieking. She then hid Flávia's body in an old ceramic oven. Rozalba said she was nervous at the time she ran away and had the adrenaline of having killed someone. Fetal abduction, also known as cesarean kidnapping, occurs when a woman desires a child so badly she is prepared to attack a mother-to-be and cut the baby from her womb, then try to pass it off as her own. The perpetrators, sometimes labeled as womb raiders, almost always fake their own pregnancy. Then they target a friend, coworker, or neighbor, or befriend a pregnant stranger online, sometimes several, and make plans to steal a full-term fetus. They have usually lost a baby of their own at some point and may be unable to have another. The women tend to be compulsive and manipulative and are principally seeking power, control, and attention from those around them. They crave the cherished status of pregnancy or new motherhood, one of the most potent tools a woman has, and would do anything to try to achieve that. She often desperately wants to keep a romantic partner in the relationship by producing a baby that they think is theirs. When she produces a baby, the abductor will have some control over her partner. It's a power play. Teresa Porter, a Connecticut state forensic psychologist who specializes in female violence, dismisses the notion that the prime motive for fetal abduction is an obsessive desire for motherhood. This is not the maternal urge run amok, she said. The perpetrators are driven more by narcissism and grandiose delusions than an obsession to nurture. She also said, there's no evidence they bond with the babies they snatch. These women are often extreme con artists. They are psychologically impaired, but the majority are not psychotic. Porter added that if the abductions were driven primarily by maternal obsession, then infertility would prompt thousands of perpetrators, which does not happen. The number of fetal abductions is small, but unfortunately on the rise. There is a lot more information available, and whereas in the old days you might have to steal another woman's sonogram image from her, now you can just download one from the internet. In addition to this, websites such as Facebook and Craigslist make finding victims much easier. And in one case, a woman briefed herself on how to conduct a cesarean by watching the Discovery Channel. As of 2015, of the 18 U.S. fetal abductions documented by the National Center, 4 occurred in the 2 decades between 1983 and 2003, but there were 14 cases between 2003 and 2013, in addition to 4 failed attempts. After the crime, Rozalba called her partner, Scheistel, and told him she had given birth to their daughter. They met up and took the baby to the hospital. He took a photo of her, covered in blood with the baby, before they got out of the car. Suspicion started arising as the hospital staff noticed deep cuts on the little one's back and arms. Rozalba was also showing no signs of recently having given birth to a child. All of these signs gave the staff reason to suspect that there was some foul play, so they alerted the authorities. Flávia had been reported missing by her husband and mother when she didn't return home that evening. Her husband and mother found her the next morning on the 28th of August. I was unable to find how they tracked Flavia's location down. However, once Flávia had been found, it didn't take authorities long to get baby Cecilia back into her father's arms. A court in Santa Catarina, Brazil, charged Zulmiar Scheistel and Rozalba Grimm after Rozalba confessed to the crime. Scheistel was later released when evidence showed that he had no knowledge of the crime and truly believed that baby Cecilia was his. Rozalba was then charged with femicide, attempted murder, alleged childbirth, abduction of the incapacitated, and concealment of a body. A detective observed and reported to the news. She was extremely cold when she confessed. She neither cared about the child's health nor asked. She told the crime in detail. There was no feeling. She spoke normally. If she has been sentenced, I haven't been able to find how much time she's received. This case disgusts me. Rozalba was a self-absorbed monster who robbed baby Cecilia of any chance of knowing her mother and ripped her into this world in such a brutal way. I'm sure it will take a while for her to heal from that trauma. I hope that Cecilia and her family are all getting the therapy, love, and support they need to get through this ordeal in the healthiest way possible. My conclusion is that you need to be very careful these days and be ready to defend yourself at any moment. Be very wary of new friends, especially ones you meet on the internet. If someone from Brazil ever listens to this, from my research, I've found that getting a gun permit is nearly impossible for regular citizens, and the minimum age to get one is 25 years old. Pepper spray and tasers are also illegal. It's not clear whether or not batons are legal to carry. However, brass knuckles are legal. I would suggest always having some brass knuckles on you. Another thing you can carry with you is a good-sized rock that you can fit into your fist if you have to start swinging. I'm not saying these things to be condescending. Brazil is a big country with many states, like the US. So I imagine that the laws can be just as confusing when carrying items for self-defense, because they often change from state to state. I've never had to get into a fight for my life, and I'm thankful for that. But I was raised to always be ready. I want for anyone listening to me to be safe out there. I have a question for you. Have you ever met a friend that you made online, in person? Did it turn out to be a positive or negative experience? I've only ever traded memes with the online friends I've made. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Thanks so much for visiting my channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. I'll be posting mostly true crime, but also other mysteries and conspiracy theories. I hope your spooky seasons are going well, and that you all have peaceful and fulfilling weeks. Bye.